welcome to this week's Behind the Curtain with Ade and Ron. It's the first time in a while that Ade and I have just been on together. We've had some amazing and interesting, extraordinary guests come on in the last few weeks, Ade.
Yeah, and today I'm very excited at the about the topic of healing. That's one that resonates a lot with me because of my personal experience being on the healing journey, and I'm sure you as well. So we both watched the podcast lately, the recent podcast with Gabor Mate on I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast. In fact, I know it was on the Joe Rogan podcast. I don't think it was on there. So I do that sometimes. I know what something is, and then I say I think it was, as like there's, I don't know why I do that. It's very strange.
Yeah, so why do you, I mean, it's something that just as you bring it up, why do you do it, and why do we do that? As you bring it up,
it's like I don't know. Part of it's like I've watched so many podcasts. I don't know, or maybe it's So I know it was on the Joe Rogan podcast. Okay. And now I feel a little bit nervous to talk about it, but but I'm going to, because this podcast is about being healing and being open. Joe Rogan podcast, and Joe Rogan in particular, is very controversial. And I watched some of his podcasts. So I was kind of taking like the neutral sort of, I think it was on maybe the Joe Rogan. I don't even know, who that is really, but I think it was on some guy, the Joe Rogan podcast, as a way to kind of like not show that I watch his podcast much. So there was a little bit of fear behind it, and I quickly went into the hiding, kind of protective sort of mechanism that I sometimes use. So that's what that was.
Yeah, he was talking with, as you said, Gabor Mate. And I think what he's saying is probably one of the most revolutionary and radical acts. And if we're going to transform this world that we're in, his explanation of one of the reasons why there is so much trauma and lots of our behavior stems from coping mechanisms which we learn from childhood, which go unrecognized, undiagnosed. So the message from the podcast and listening to Gabor Mate, I feel that where he's going is where we're all going to be going. Maybe the structures that are in place that right now are resistant to what he's saying, but that's where it will eventually go. And I think it's radical, transformative, and evolutionary, and maybe revolutionary.
Yeah, I agree. And I think people are more receptive to it nowadays. People are more open to the ideas that to just healing in general. You hear a lot about healing. And one of the things about Gabor Mate in particular why I'm attracted to him is he always uses himself as a reference. So he's not like saying, well, it's this client that I worked with or these people. He is very honest about his own addiction and how that stems from his trauma as a baby, growing up in Nazi occupied territory. I think it was in Budapest, if I remember correctly, where his mom couldn't, where his mom had to didn't give him the affection that he needed as a child, because of this was the advice that she was getting from her physician, just not to pick him up much, not to give him that affection. And so I think the reasons behind that, part of the reasons is they were in hiding, and he had to basically they couldn't have a baby around crying and being attached to her, basically. And I think that she actually gave him up for a little while. Maybe he had to go live with his grandparents, if I remember correctly. I don't know if I'm saying this story correctly. But anyway, as a child, you don't have the conceptual framework to understand what was going on. All the message he got is that he wasn't wanted. Not that she was trying to protect him from the Nazis, but that she didn't want him. So that trauma manifested throughout his life in the form of ADHD, addiction to shopping and other things, and addiction to work. So going back to why I'm attracted to him is because he talks about his own experiences, but not just that he talks about his experiences. He does it in a very nonchalant and compassionate way. So there's this self-compassion. He's not pejorative about it. He's not beating himself up. He's not saying, well, he's such a bad person. There's just a level of honesty that is there. And this is like, and he'll say this when people think of him, he's the big Gabor Mate who's holding retreats and doing all these things and helping a lot of people. So when he shares the things about maybe not being there for his kids or not being present for his wife, it's very encouraging to see someone who is really deep in the healing work, still experiencing these very human things that are based from trauma. So I think that is the thing that I enjoy most about him. If he didn't talk about himself and his experiences, I don't think I would connect to him as much.
If you go back a few steps, I think how you started shows a sign on the dysfunction in our society. You said you find him interesting because he's honest and speaks about what he goes through. So for you, that's quite extraordinary. He's honest and speaks about his own experiences. Isn't that quite odd then, that we find this refreshing for someone to do that? Because what does that mean then? We're so used to maybe not lies, but maybe pretense. We're so used to somebody elevating themselves into something else. We're so used to that. When someone comes along and just, oh yes, I went through this, we find it refreshing.
Yeah.
So what society are we living in where it's the norm to not be honest about yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What way of being where someone just saying the truth? I think, was it in a world of ultimate deception, telling the truth is a revolutionary act? I think that's George Orwell. And that's, I guess, what he's epitomizing. And the fact that people can sit around, find him interesting, and the first thing he's honest.
Yeah.
And he discusses openly what he's been through. He's not putting himself up in an elevated standard. He's not doing that. He's just speaking openly and asking the question. We've been told so often that maybe it's our genes and our genetics. But what about if we look at the system or the cultures or the families that we have been born into and look at those? And if our society is toxic, then what do we expect from people growing up? What did I say? I think I listened to it last week. If you put an oak tree in a ground, the oak tree can grow to 50, 100 feet. If you pull it in a pot, it won't grow to that height. Now, it's the same seeds that have gone into the ground and in the pot, but one oak grows to its full potential and the other oak is stunted. But what we do is say, oh, the oak in the pot, there's something wrong with that oak.
Yeah.
No, it's just the environment that we pull it in made it so it couldn't grow to its ultimate potential. And I think Gabor Mate also asks us to be honest with ourselves and open dialogue with families and just start the healing process within ourselves, look honestly at it. And lots of these behaviors, like you said, with his mother didn't want to make him feel that he was abandoned, but what did he know about the adult life? So his mother was doing his best, and it's how he interpreted it. Yeah. So it's not about making your parents bad or your system bad or so on. It's just about looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is just about looking at it, and I find it helpful to look at it from like kind of like stepping back a little bit. Almost as if you're looking at someone else's life, you know, like a character in a play. And I find that to be helpful.
Yeah. And it's going to, I think, and also this way of being is, it's about a total transformation, looking at how we're brought up in the system that we live in the schools and what's happening. And maybe lots of the illnesses that are being caused, illnesses that we have, we can trace them back as, you know, and I think his book is When the Body Says No.
Yeah.
When we've been repressing these feelings, repressing these ways of being for so long, then like a ball which you push under the sea, it pops up. If we repress something for so long, it will come up somewhere. And maybe it'll come up in anger and behavior, but a lot of times it's going to come up in dis-ease.
Yeah. You know, I remember, like for myself, I've had, especially growing up, when I was younger, in my teens, I'd go into fits of rage, and just like, that's the only emotion that I really knew was like anger and rage. The stuff that was going on underneath that, I wasn't really connected with or familiar with at all, because those things were scary. You know, I don't feel like they were the unknown. I didn't feel safe to share them, especially where I grew up. You didn't share about being vulnerable or feeling insecure or feeling embarrassed. You didn't hear people like hanging out on the street corners, or like me and my friends. You didn't, like, maybe nowadays the younger folks have this language, but we would have never said, "Well, what you did just embarrassed me a lot," and I felt, you know, this old insecurity triggered. You know, and you know, I'm feeling kind of insecure right now and sad and everything else. So we wouldn't share anything like that. It was immediate um, defensiveness, anger, you know, sarcasm, but not the healthy sarcasm that I have, but like uh, more of the kind of uh, more of the like passive aggressive type of behavior. You know, when you just joke around and you don't really get um, tell the other person how you're really feeling.
Mm.
So.
Mm. And especially in this day and age with text messaging, internet, social media, we're allowed to, and sometimes even encourages behaviors where you can take digs at each other, have a go at people, behaving really, you know, rude and mean ways because you're behind the blanket of a screen.
Yeah.
And I think, so I think looking into Gabor Mate's work, he's asking us to look afresh at what we've been told. And a lot of times, what we see as culture may have been learnt coping mechanisms from years back. And we see this behavior in, especially in, I remember, let me go back. Joy DeGroy was talking about how people from the Caribbean and African Americans would beat their children. And they would say, they would even ask their children to go and get the belt, which is the one that they would beat them with.
Yeah.
And she said, what does that sound like? It sounds like behavior from slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of times things are passed down and then we think it's the norm. And so we carry this around. And what we look at sometimes as dysfunctional behavior it's been unhealed, unlooked at. So, and I think he says something about, one person was saying that his alcoholism, he said, was passed down. And he said, no, it's not the alcoholism, it's the conditions that they were brought up in, which is why then they turn to alcoholism. And he said, it's not in the genes. He said, the genes could make you have a greater propensity for addiction. But you could have two people who underwent the same thing, and one could have a healthy, happy life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the genes. It's the conditions and the structures and the families that we are brought up in.
Yeah.
So let's take a second look.
Yeah, and I mean, and in that case, it is. I guess the genes would play a part in terms of the trauma that's passed down, which could lead to the addictive behavior, whether it's alcoholism, drug use, or shopping. Or one of the other things is he's saying that where many, like most people, are addicted to something. You know, it's just different forms. Maybe some are more socially acceptable, like work. You know, You work 60 hours a week and you get a pat on the back. Yeah, that's great. He works 60 hours. He works 70 hours a week. Like he's killing himself. In Japan, they are actually working themselves. Is it Japan? I think it's Japan,
Yes,
where they
I think
work
it is,
themselves
yes.
to death.
Mm.
You know, and that's considered something to be proud of. To just work yourself. Meanwhile, when you're not around because you work yourself to death, your kids are not going to have a father or mother. Your family's not going to have you around. You know, so, and when you're absent for 60 hours a week, you know, your family's not going to have you around either. And I don't put the fault at the people that are some having to work those many hours because they're not getting paid much and they have to take care of kids, and maybe it's a single mom or something like that. But it's the system that creates these conditions, as you're talking about, where you're forced to do this work and to you know, to survive. So you're locked in it, and then, you know, there's these convenience ways of eating. So there's the fast food place on the way home to the kids. So yeah, you're dead tired, so you can pick up some McDonald's on the way home and give it to the kids, and that contributes to the you know, the sickness. So, you know, the health and everything else. And
He brought up a book which I read a few years ago, and it was about sugar, salt, and fat.
oh yeah.
Yeah. These producers of food, producers of what should I call things they put down your throat. Some people call it food.
Yeah.
So producers of these products, they have scientists who work chemically at a base level to produce enough sugar, salt, and fat to become addictive, so make you addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, it doesn't, they don't even hide it. This is what they do to produce, so you keep coming back as a regular customer, which will in fact eventually kill you.
Yeah.
But nothing, it's just the norm, so it's not even spoken about. And it's not, and it's in every shop, fast food chain, everywhere you go. And this is considered just normal. It's considered normal to wake up at 6 in the morning and work until 6 in the evening. It's normal. And then you go home and then you turn on a screen because you're so exhausted. But this is normal.
Yeah.
What is it doing to, so a lot of the things that we're doing are giving us systems or things that we can have to cope with the world as it is. So we're coping with this. We eat this fast food to cope with this because we're so rushed, we're so busy. So we're always to cope with, but we're coping with something which is toxic. Something which is abnormal, and something which is causing illness and cancers and diseases and God knows what else at a astronomical level.
Yeah.
So when are we going to say, let's stop? But the system in place, it thrives on the way we're behaving right now. And when we go to work, many times, we're getting a wage, but they're taking our energy. But they're taking our life force. So, of course, if we're living this way, if we're behaving in this way, if we're rushing around in this way, if we're repressing in this way, then what happens? It affects our behaviors with our families, loved ones. It affects our behaviors with friends. It comes out in disease in the body. And then we turn around and say, oh, I don't know why this person He's ill. I got no idea. I got no idea. You know what? I got no idea why I'm doubting myself and killing myself. I don't know what to do. These fears and anxieties, you know, it's just normal.
Yeah. And then they give us the pills. They give us the Band-Aids on the our wounds are gushing blood.
Yes.
And they give us the little Band-Aids, and we keep putting little things. And okay, I'm exhausted. I slept 4 hours. I worked 16 hours, 12 hours. I'm exhausted. Okay, I need a cup of coffee. I'm going to need 2 cups of coffee this morning. The 2 cups of coffee. So then you go into work and, you know, you talk to your friend. Well, how are you feeling? Well, I didn't get any sleep last night, but I had a few cups of coffee, so I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. It's like when you think of it, so the body doesn't get the rest. We're putting a stimulant in the body to stimulate the body. So the body's tired and we're stimulating the body. It's like if a child was sleeping at 3 a.m. and you play loud music, get up, get up. You stimulate them. And so the body's like I think we're in constant fight, flight, or freeze. We're in constant alert to the point of where it begins to be very taxing on the body, you know, and you start to get these illnesses, as you talked about. You start to get sick more often than not, you know, and you wonder why. Well, I need to go to the doctor to figure out why this is happening, you know, figure out like, why do I, you know, having these stomach issues, you know, I got to go figure it out. Well, partly because of the stuff that we're ingesting, all of the junk, the quick meals on the go, I see people, I feel bad. I see people stopping on the way to work to Dunkin' Donuts and having a donut and a coffee for breakfast. The person I work with, you know, we were talking, and he was like, well, you know, what do you normally eat for breakfast? I'd say I have oatmeal with a bunch of fruit and bananas and stuff, steel cut oatmeal. And he said, oh, that sounds healthy. He was like, oh, I don't know. I said, what do you have? He says, oh, I'm lucky if I have anything. If there's I grab a croissant if it's there, drink down some coffee. I grab the croissant, run to the train, and then when I get off the train, I may have eggs and bacon on a roll. And just when he said that, my body was like, like I couldn't imagine doing that. Like the body would just like, you know, protest. Yeah, it's not healthy, but I don't know if the body adjusts to it, or we kind of just get used to eating junk, a donut a day. I also walk past a construction site every day, and you know, the stuff that they're eating is just like huge hero, like sub sandwiches, like filled with meat and stuff, and you know.
Yeah, do you know what? Because as well, I think we choose to buy the illusion sometimes.
Mm.
We choose to buy the image, and
yeah,
it's you know what? You could go home and sleep at night and take it easy buying the image.
Mm-hmm.
If we want, if you know, you don't have to think about anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You just, oh yes, oh, on the packaging looks wonderful. Farmer Joe's little cow. And this cow is roaming the fields, talking with his friends. Yeah. And then in the evening, the cow turns around and says, Farmer Joe, I've got some extra milk. Would you like some?
Hmm.
And then Farmer Joe said, oh, thank you, cow. And he milks the cow, and that's the milk he sells.
Yeah.
And we like to have this kind of image. But who is this image serving? You said at the beginning, honesty with Gabor Mate. We live in an age of advertising and marketing, which is so dishonest and sometimes so corrupt that it's mind-boggling. And also remember as well, when you do try to go behind the scenes and find out what is going on, are you welcome with open arms? So come into my factory and look how come into my, you're not. You're told to keep out. And I think that should say something amazing, that if we really knew what we were consuming, what we were buying, if we really knew what was really going on, I think there will be a double take by many people about what they're consuming. The environment but the way that we are now is just normal, and we've been brought up in it.
Yeah.
We're saturated in it. So anybody who, you think about it, if someone says something now about, changing the system, a lot of times they're told, oh, you're so unrealistic, or you're an idealist, or your head's in the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're saying is, if we look at it another way, your way of truth and peace is so wrong, and that this way is the only way we know. And I think we've got to look carefully about what's going on, and let's not be afraid to peel back these layers and to look.
Yeah.
Yes, at the beginning, it's going to be challenging for us if we've been used to a certain way of being. Maybe and saying no to the boss who wants you to work those extra hours.
Mm-hmm.
Saying no to, or having open dialogue with friends and forgiveness for yourself and family and so on is going to be challenging. But what other way is there to go? Because this toxicity is everywhere, in our environment, in our seas, oceans, it's in us. And the healing is, yes, it's a personal, but it's also transformative, because if it starts from one person, it has to affect the people in your vicinity. So what you're doing for yourself, you're doing for another. Your relationships will change. If you look at the way you're eating and living, yes, that will change. Because when we give our money to something, we are supporting it. When you give our money to certain salt, fat, and sugar producers, they're going to produce more salt, fat, and sugar. If we try to go somewhere, and also, while my mind's there, it's very interesting is that food is called food, but organic food is called organic food. The food is the normal, and the non-chemicalized food has got a label to it. It's very interesting is that the abnormal is the normal, and the dechemicalized is seen as the different.
Yeah. And that's going to change, that can change as well, because it's all marketing. And some of the organic foods have organic chemicals now. So they are using organic pesticides. These are natural, organic ones that they're using on some of the organic farms. There's some like truly organic farmers out there as well, but for the mass distribution, farming companies, a lot of them have found loopholes. So I think you still have to wash your fruits and vegetables.
And that's it. So again, we go back to at the beginning, Eddie, and you said Gabor Mate's honesty. Again, this thing called loopholes, yes? It's finding ways around and ways through to manipulate the system to your benefit, yes? But this is seen as the normal. So to scheme and find ways is the normal. But the way we say it, oh, yeah, I found some loopholes in this, and that means then these loopholes are specifically for you because you found them. They're not open to everyone. So again, it creates this, what we talk so blasé about these things called loopholes. Because it's just normal, yes, or some people who know their way around the system and they're paid a bit more. But the fact that we have to, there are certain people who can manipulate the system to their benefit and go around the system, which then harms other people. And the fact that this is normal, I think that says a lot.
Well, that's the thing. They're not going around the system. That's the system.
Exactly.
So, the system is not working because we're able to, I mean, what's the bottom line in terms of corporations, and is it our well-being or is it profit?
Is that a joke question there,
That's a serious question. When they sit in boardrooms and they have these meetings, and are they thinking about, well, what is going to help people the most? What would be best for their health? I think that is mentioned. I think they have to mention it somehow. I think that line, thinking about the consumer, how is it benefiting the consumer? I think that is in, the part of the pitch or whatever, the ideas, part of the mission statement of the corporation, whatever company, whether it's Oreo cookies. Our mission statement, on the package of Oreo cookie, it said, what did it say? Ethically or something sourced cocoa that they use. So the cocoa for the Oreo cookies. And, so I look at the package of the Oreo cookie and I thought, oh, wow, they're using like really good cocoa for these Oreo cookies. That's really good. So, they can't be that bad. But yeah, so they don't. They what I'm trying to say is they use language in their mission statement that they are looking out for people. They're trying to serve people. But then what their actions are is opposite. So they are selling products that are not good for people's health. Yeah, maybe they satisfy the taste buds or the sugar, sugar, fat, salt combination. They satisfy that. Maybe they're offering these products at a reasonable price. So that's helping the consumer. But I think the bottom line is for the company to get profit, and so that they can beat the competitors.
Well, it seems to be that's their sole basis for existing, is to make profit.
Yeah.
And if we go behind and look, okay, what they mean by sustainable and what you mean by sustainable may be two completely different things.
Mm.
So we may have an image of, a certain cookie brand is getting sustainable cocoa. So in our minds, we see this field of jolly workers in fields somewhere in Africa and Asia, and they're all just living life to the full, and they're just joyously picking. That's in our minds, yes?
Yeah.
What may be in their minds may be something completely different.
Well, let's play it out. So we're at a company, I'm Nabisco, and I make Oreo cookies. I'm the spokesman for Nabisco Oreo cookies. I don't know if that's what Oreo cookies. So I said, part of what we're doing an outreach program, and there's been some concerns about our products, and we're letting people come to talk about it, because here at Nabisco, we want people to have a voice and to give feedback so that we can make better products. So we're holding this meeting and allowing people to ask questions. So, sir, did you have a question? Your hand was up.
Oh. No, I don't have a question. Here's what I do have. Because my questions can't be answered here today. I'm just hearing from you, Mr. CEO. I want to see what's going on in the production at every level. Also, the parts of your production where you're outsourcing to different companies, which may not be under your label. I want to see that. I want to see if there's been any lawsuits made you. So can you please make this open for me to see right here and right now? I want to speak to the people on the ground who you say you are trying to help. I want to speak with them and see them personally. Also, you say you're paying your workers correctly. Are these workers able to live on the wage that you're paying them? And that, again, I want to see for myself. Secondly, what health concerns are there from the people who are working in your manufacturing business? And also, I want to see that for myself. Also, I would like to see how much profit you have made, and all the directors sitting around the table right now, how much money you have made and how much you're paying your service people. Also, are there openings? How did you come into the position of being the CEO? What's the percentage of your wages compared to your local producers? Are the people that you're employing in the cocoa farm, do they have full health care and life insurance? And is there a way forward for them to move and forward their own businesses and careers? Again, all of these questions that I put forward, I would like to see for myself, fully transparent and published and open and recorded.
Okay. What's your name, sir? I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry. And where are you from?
Rad Usha from London.
From London. I hear it's rainy in London, huh? Is it? What's the weather like there?
And secondly, this is, I find, really abhorrent. I forgot this, is that the way, after asking serious concerns, you try to handle me and belittle me in a manner which I find most disconcerting. The fact that you didn't even bother to ask me about any of the questions and things I had raised.
Okay.
The fact that the first thing you asked me was, what's my name? What's that got to do with it? And secondly, what does it matter to the cocoa farmer whether it's raining in London or not? And what has that got to do with any of the concerns that I raise? And the fact that you said this to me in this manner shows me straight away that there is a corruption and dishonesty in the way you are speaking to me. So my questions have probably all been answered by your reply.
So, Mr. Ron from London. Now, on a serious note, I won't joke around, because you asked very serious questions, and I can see your concern, and these are all very valid questions. These are all great questions. In fact, I wrote them all down. I have them all here.
1 second. Again, marketing and advertising, which is what you're doing, by you saying to me, trying to say that you're listening to me, by saying, oh, you have wonderful questions and very valid questions and are validated by and what you're doing is marketing and advertising 101.
Well, let's be fair now. You haven't given me a chance to answer the questions.
No handling. Answer the question.
Okay. So as I was saying, I did write down the questions. Okay. And I'm just saying that just so that you know, I took your questions seriously. I have them here. Okay. So I have the questions here. Now, in terms of health insurance, so you asked if our workers get health insurance, life insurance. You also asked about the CEO wages, which is on our website, www. And, there was an article written about the source of our products that, was written 5 years ago. This has been peer reviewed, and you can find it in Article 79. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, yes, you wanted to come to our factory and watch the process. We'd be happy to have you come. Just get in contact with us. You can reach us at our office. And we'd be happy to take you on a tour so you could. And where's the other camera? So we would be happy to take him on a tour so that he can see what we are making. So I hope this answers most of your questions. And also, if anyone has any other questions, our good friend Ron asked some really great questions, which I think us here at Nabisco, we answered all the questions, and without a doubt, and I think Ron is satisfied as well. Turn off his mic. And so. And so we're gonna. I think that's as many questions as we can get for today. If anyone has any other questions, so we satisfied Ron's questions because we have integrity here. Make sure it's still let's turn it off. Okay, make sure we satisfy these questions because we believe here at Nabisco we want to have people to ask questions. Are there any other questions here in our audience? Sorry, there's some hands raised. No, there aren't any other questions. Okay, so we're just going to go to. We're going to end it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, this role-playing game that we just played, I think, it's very interesting. But I think but the reason is, why are we laughing at it? And we're laughing is because these tools of manipulation, swerving questions, not getting to the root of it, blindsiding people, belittling people, making them think that they're stupid, not getting beneath all of what's going on, hiding, is just the norm. So we can laugh at it. Could we go, yes, that's why we can laugh. And we can laugh at this. But maybe, we've got to really look and see. And maybe comedy and joking is the way around it, just to see it. Because I think maybe that's one of the tools that we have. And to not get brought into these ways of being and these ways of speaking. And let's talk honestly and openly, because I think maybe we're not going to change the structure by going out there. I think it comes from here, doesn't it? I think it starts from little things that we are doing individually. And I think one of the weapons of the system is when we're told, it's too big, it's never going to change. That's the system going, the marketing and advertising worked.
Yeah.
To make you feel that you can't do anything is one of the tools. Whenever we think that the challenge is too big, it's insurmountable, that's been put into you by the very thing that you think is too big and insurmountable. So our way of thinking, sometimes we think it's a rebellion, but our way of thinking sometimes is exactly what the system wants.
Yeah. And they give the stamp of approval. Did you know that McDonald's is FDA approved? Burger King is FDA approved. All of these things that cause people, health problems, probably cancers, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes. As long as they're FDA approved, then they're fine. They pass. And some of the products that are actually very healthy for you, it's too big of a process and too expensive to become FDA approved. So they're not able to get the stamp of approval, and then it's more difficult to get their products to supermarkets and things like that. So it is really backwards the way that it works. There's chemicals in our food that's FDA approved. And I guess the FDA is saying, well, it won't kill you right away. So I don't see. And then sometimes they may change their tune and say, well, actually, we found that there is some carcinogens in this product, so we're recalling it for now, You know
what? One of the things, Ade, and we've spoken about this in Behind the Curtain, is, we can no longer afford to be just sidelined by phrases and words. Just because something says sustainable, it doesn't mean it is. Just because something says it's ethically sourced, it doesn't mean it is. How many times has we been shown that these terms can be just cast aside, or you can do certain things just to get inside the parameters?
Yeah.
So if we're saying to ourselves, but how often do you get lied to before you start to say, well, hold on a second, I'm not going to just buy that So we can't afford to go just looking, oh, yes, it's FDA approved. It must be okay. Or sustainably sourced. Because who are we kidding? Ourselves. Then we are part of the issue. I'm not saying, none of us are perfect, Ade. We're all doing the best we can.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can say anymore, because it said so on the tin, it's true.
Yeah.
I don't think we can afford to say that just because it says ethically sourced wood doesn't mean it didn't come from the rainforest. Just because it says pure spring water, I think this one we must know now. Okay. Yeah. Just because it says pure spring from the from the waterfalls of heaven, the angel Gabriel flew up there and is pouring out of a canister himself. It doesn't mean that it's pure spring water.
Yeah.
And we've been shown that lots of the bottled water is just tap water. And a company that we all well know is doing this. So we can't afford to. You know what? I think we have to grow up maybe in this respects. Johnny said so, miss, so it must be true. Miss, Freddie told me to do it, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
How long are we going to go that way for? So this healing is, I think, when you start on this journey and you start looking behind the curtain, you begin to start to open your eyes. And at the beginning, it's maybe uncomfortable because things that we've been doing for a long time, behaviors for a long time, ways of being, self-doubt and self-talk, putting ourselves down, this workaholic, rushing around way of being, which has caused us stress and anxiety. We got to look at it and be open and honest.
Yeah.
And not be part of it and say, you know what, I'm going to do little things here and there that will make some changes. And that little thing that you do has an effect on this person, has an effect on that person, has an effect on this person. And you and I both know that to be actually true because we've seen it. Just these little things that we talk about, we've seen little things. And I think most people have seen, if this person or I do slightly something, a change, something slightly, changes go on down the line. And I might not be aware of them, but I think then we live in the magic and in mystery and in, exuberance of life about what we can create, rather than get stuck in, there's nothing we can do, Ade. It's just too big. Do you know what, Ade? I've been rushing around my whole life. I'm sick and there's nothing I can do about it, Ade. And there's, I've got no choice. I can't do. I'm too tired when I get home. I just want to. I don't blame you. Sit down and watch the news.
Yeah.
Or we can try and look at things a different way and start with ourselves.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we get from these unhealthy routines is this false sense of safety and security. Although it is in a lot of ways killing us and making us miserable, it's like the staying in the abusive relationship. You know it's not healthy, but that person's always there. You can count on them being, reacting this way or responding this way, and being angry or manipulating you, and then you get into your way of protecting yourself. And so, we know we're going to be tired, but we have that coffee in the morning, the 2 cups of coffee. We go to the deli, and there's the other workers waiting online for the egg, cheese, and bacon on the roll. And, so there's this familiar, okay, well, they're here too. So we're all here grinding and doing our thing. So there's this sense of safety, and this feeling of routine and belonging. And so we're creatures that seek this, and we kind of need it in some way. So I think part of it is creating new healthy habits, which, in the beginning, it may feel a little bit scary because we're stepping away from that in which we know and stepping into the unknown. And when we go into the unknown, well, we don't know what to expect. So, we may have some healthy food, and it might taste different. We're not used to it. Our body may react different. It may take some time to adjust. But I think a big part of this process of healing is, like you said, having this self-awareness and being with the discomfort, not running away from it. So, going to sleep at an earlier bedtime, even though, it may, turning off the news, you get this comfort from listening to CNN and hearing, this, CNN will play the same thing over and over and over. Then you can ask, well, why don't I turn it off and just be with myself? And so another big part of the healing is what emotions are coming up. And I think this is like the core with the healing, because it really begins with working on what is happening within yourself. So I'm distracting from feeling what's going on within myself. So, you may come to feel some fear. You may come to feel some insecurity that you weren't looking at. You may come to feel, well, I got this fear of death that I've been avoiding, that I've been taking sleeping pills to avoid feeling, that I've been numbing myself out with drugs and alcohol because I didn't want to feel this discomfort, this, feeling not good enough, these sort of root feelings, feeling like I don't belong. So then when we get to that point, then we can find different ways and modalities to address some of these things, using our breath, putting our attention on the emotion and breathing into the feeling of feeling not good enough. And rather than seeking something to numb that feeling, or to fill that space, that hole that is there, eating more and more and more and more and more, so, and then, comes, so then we do come up against a society and a culture that is making money off of our insecurities, of our feeling not good enough. Well, this makeup will make you feel good enough. This product will make you good enough. This new job will make you good enough. So all these things that they say will make you good enough. So then we try different things. Relationship will make you good enough. So then there's dating apps. Go on Tinder and you find a the perfect mate to, all these dates to make you feel good enough. And, at the end of it, at a certain point, I think, need to investigate what is here, investigate the emotions, feel the emotions, and also recognize we also live in a culture where we're taught that we are born in sin, where we're taught that we don't deserve, so we're not deserving of love, we're not deserving of good things unless you do these things, or you don't start off deserving happiness, joy, and abundance. You start off born in sin, that you're lacking. And even if you don't go the religious route with it, but that's so seeped into the fabric of the culture, it's hard not to be affected. I don't even care if you're atheist or whatever, you're still affected. It's so ingrained in the culture. So, and then you're taught, and then there's this punishing culture as well. So, blame and punish. So if you make a mistake, you're punished, or if you make a mistake, you're blamed. You're a bad person. You're judged. So all of these things are what have become the natural structure. Like, it's the structure of this society. Our society is not structured on things like love and compassion, openness, wellness. It's not. If it was, we wouldn't be going into wars. We wouldn't see the drug epidemic is on the highest I've ever seen. I see people on opiates everywhere in New York City. I've never seen it like this before. I mean, it's really gotten really bad. It's like increased by so much. So all of these things are going on, and so I think we need to find new structures, but we can't. It's be very difficult to create new structures until we have this sort of inner engineering within ourselves, restructuring ourselves, which I think a big part of that is looking inward and notice, becoming aware of these things.
Let me ask you a question, Ade. In all of your school life, from the age of, say, 4 until 20s, did you ever have a lesson on breathing?
No.
Ade, I'm going to ask you another question, and this may seem a bit odd. Ade, what happens if you don't breathe?
You die.
Okay. So the basic premise of existence in this body is to be aware of our breath. When something transformative happens, I'm not talking you can come from any spiritual background you want to. When we are aware of our breath, it slows down all by itself. We then are able to feel the emotions without being drawn into them and hooked into them. We could actually feel them and then let them do their course through the body. And the mind, we actually see this. But the basic premise of, and I think the inner engineering, which you said, that word, it's a great phrase, Ade.
It's not mine.
I think it begins with that. But if from the I have never had a lesson on the breath. I mean, I've heard about how it works, but not actually in it, actually breathing.
Mm.
And if the most important thing for every single human being on this planet, and you and I between us have not had one lesson on it. I don't mean when the yoga teacher comes in or meditating teacher comes in one day. I don't mean that. Just on being present, I think says something about where we're living. Because I think when you begin to breathe, you stop for a moment of going out there, and you're able to observe without criticism or judgment. And I think in that state of just being able to observe and awareness, and we see the Colgate toothpaste advert saying, "Oh, you've got to have that," we would look at it and say, no, or we would not be drawn in by it, because the ultimate message that they're sending out is, you're not enough.
Mm-hmm.
But in just being present, we will see that that's just an idea and a thought.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why it's not gone into, in our Western society, the breath. And then we would look at the quality of the air that we're breathing. Then we will feel the body and how it is. Like you said, the constant fight or flight mode. You can't live that way. It's, you know what, you can't live 24 hours a day living this way.
Yeah.
So I think it comes back to that. Hear it from the presence of being aware of who you are, and not be, and in your environment, it may feel that you're alone. In your village, in your town, in your classroom, in your school, it may feel that you're alone. But take this. There are thousands and millions of people who are thinking the same way, but you won't see them on mainstream television. You're not going to see them in the mainstream music and pop charts. You're not going to see their films and so on. You're not going to see them, but they're out there. We're bombarded with the other vision, which they want to see. But if we take that on board, and you know what, I may not see anybody who's thinking like this in my street and in my group of friends, but you're not alone. You're not alone. In fact, there are whole communities, and their history is based on the connection and oneness and healing. The whole way of existence was in this reciprocal human, just like the human and the tree. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, oxygen, carbon dioxide, was based on that. And this is older than any capitalist system or so-called democratic system that we live in right now. It's thousands of years older than that. So you're not alone. And by just speaking about it, a change has been made. And doing your own healing allows the openness for another to do the same. By you being honest, taking away the mask would allow someone else to take away their mask.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes one to take off the mask. And I've found when I've had experiences when I've done that and just be totally honest, and the person on the other end, they're just like, okay. We don't have to play that game anymore. You know.
And Ade, I think something else should maybe end. this term brutally honest.
Mm.
Why have you put a brutal in front of it? Shouldn't it be you're brutally dishonest?
Yeah.
Honesty is honesty, isn't it? How can honesty be brutal? I mean, if it's just, but I think it's there for a reason. The brutally honest is because we're so used to dishonesty.
Yeah.
Maybe it's to look at the ways of being in our lives that we have become used to dishonesty, and not put terms in front of the honest.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go and buy, hopefully, organic food. I'm going to go and buy food. And then if I want to get some chemicalized cookies, I will say, okay, I'm going to go get some chemicalized cookies.
Yeah.
And maybe we should change how we speak in regards to how we want to live.
Yeah.
I'm going to get I'm going to get an orange. And tomorrow, I might go to a certain fast food restaurant and get some chemicalized, addictive salt, sugar, and fat, vastly processed, human labor destroying, highly chemicalized, Amazon burning food, and I'm going to eat that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Unless you're honest.
Yeah.
Unless you're honest. Yeah.
I think that's the best place to start. For me, like even if I'm going to eat, sometimes maybe I want to get ice cream or a piece of cake. So let's say around lunchtime, like, okay, I want ice cream. So, or a piece of cake. There's this tradition. Well, you have your meal and then you have the dessert. But that never made sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. Why have a full meal and then on top of that have the dessert? So, like for lunch, if I am craving, I want a piece of cake, chocolate cake or whatever, what I'll do is I'll just eat that for lunch. I'll say that's what I'm going to have for lunch. I'm going to have a piece of cake. I'm not going to have like a salad or some sandwich for lunch or whatever and then have the cake, because that's just adding more on top of it, more calories, more. So that's one of the ways that I'm just kind of breaking out. Like when I do that, sometimes people are like, oh, you're not going to have, you're just going to have that for, yeah. Like that's the meal. That's what I'm having. It's less harmful than if I have the meal and then on top of that, all the sugars and stuff.
Yeah. And no one's asking anybody to be perfect. There's a time when, I enjoy the chocolate cake and whatever it is. But I think there's certain things that I will not do now. So in regards to, because I think as well, it goes, I've seen stuff now, which I can't and don't want to unsee.
Yeah.
And so I won't, so this line, I can't really go beyond it now because I've seen it for myself. Yeah. I can't kid myself anymore. I just know. So these kind of things. But no one's asking anybody to be perfect. In fact, talking about your imperfections and admitting them is, like you said at the beginning, is honest. It's honest, isn't it? Yes. You know what? Hi guys, here's my chocolate full of sugar today, but I'm feeling a bit down today, so I'm gonna take it in, and I'm sure it's got loads of chemicals. That's what we're gonna have today, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And maybe just see it that way, so you don't have to beat yourself up about it. And tell yourself, I think as well, that's another thing the system does. It makes you turn inward on yourself and put yourself down and harm yourself. And going up to, and we then another thing which the system does, it puts people on pedestals.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we put someone else up, we are down here. And what does that say? What does that say to us? And even the great spiritual teachers, they always said, I am you and you are me, but are we listening?
Yeah.
I don't think they asked us to put their faces on the mantelpiece and burn incense to them every day. I don't recall them saying that.
That's a big dream of mine.
Oh yeah. Did we miss something? Did I miss that satsang when they said that, hey, when you go home, put a picture of me with a incense and burn it?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that satsang. Maybe I was away that day.
Yeah, we seem to idolize people and think that they have something that we just can't possibly. We're just low and or if it's not that, then we are the great I am. We are so much better than everyone, and all of this. So it's the big, the big great I am, or the lowly me.
Yep.
But there's what about workers among workers, like the bees? Just be a worker among workers. We're all working together. We're all contributing and collaborating. And that's an important part I think in this journey of healing is having community, finding safe space where you can be honest, where you can say, I'm not, you can experiment with setting your boundaries. You can say, that doesn't work for me. That's not good. And hopefully have people on the other end that can respect that and that are able to receive you as well. And so to have that in the community is very important. And it starts with the individual doing that individual work. Right now, our communities are not really set up. We haven't even gotten to that. We're just in such reactionary modes of being. It's just like everything's very fast. How are you doing? I'm fine. TJF Friday.
Yeah. I think we've got to look at this life force that we have been blessed with. A lot of it we are just discarding, throwing away. We've got so much. If you think about it, what we're capable of, what the things that we can do, and if we turned our mind to these things, what changes could be made. If we stop with the self-doubt and negative self-images and pedestalizing people, and what can be accomplished. I think we're just at the beginning. So we're leaving nursery, and the human is going into, well, not all humans, but just in general, I'll say Western civilization is going into the first year of primary school.
Yeah.
So we're year 5, but we're going to be careful because we've been given this 5-year-old with nuclear weapons. That's pretty dangerous. So
that's pretty much what's going on. And the only people that are getting in the way of that is other 5-year-olds pretending to be adults. So I've always said this, where one day I was riding the train in Manhattan and I was looking at all the adults with their briefcases and a lot of people looking serious, and and I just thought pictured them all. They just all looked like kids pretending to be adults. Like when you're a kid and you pretend to be your dad. They look like that, but they took the role too seriously. That's what it looks like. It looks like we've all taken this role too seriously, and we've created this sort of nightmare. You know, we could have gone anywhere with this game, with this. You know, we're playing this game as kids. Come on, let's play this game of, you know, and we went with the nightmare version of it. We took it very seriously, and we went with the worst version that we could come up with. I mean, there's some good things about it, but I think we should try out different ways. You know, I think it's important to first remember that we're playing, that it is a play. It's a game. We're playing this thing, so we can change it up. You know, when you're playing a game with other kids, and one kid's like, "Well, why don't we do this? We're going into a pit of fire." I think we did that. So we're going into this pit of fire, and then we're battling against this. We went that route. So now another kid is like, why don't we try, you know, something different where we're listening to each other, and, you know, we're just eating good food and healthy stuff. And the other kid's like, no, well, but the dragons are trying to get us. We don't have time for that. You know, so we have to kind of remember that we can change the movie, we can change the play. I think it happens within ourselves first. There's some healing work. I mean, even the healing work is part of the play. But we have to. It's a good part. We have to play the game of healing. You know, really, we I mean, in all actuality, no one really needs to be healed. We're all consciousness. We're all healed. We're all, you know, there's energy and awareness, and but to be able to play a different game, I think we have to play the game of healing as well. And I like looking at it that way, because it doesn't have to be so heavy. And so, like, oh, we gotta do this. Yeah, it's very hard. It could be fun, you know.
Do you know what? Yes. So being so I was a teacher in a school for a long time. So you get, oh, I'm letting you into one of the behind the scenes now. So yes, I was a teacher in the school for a long time. And so when you're in front of the class, yeah, you're there, Mr. Whoever or Mrs. Whoever, whatever, yes. Okay. Most of the time, they got no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
Some of the time, they look, oh yes, oh, Freddie, that's really good today. Freddie, yes, Johnny's good. Mary's really good. A lot of the time, they're terrified out of their minds.
Yeah.
Thirdly, you know, they look like they love their job, but they may do. They can't wait for Friday.
Yeah.
To leave. And these images of, you know, I think, did I write it or someone wrote it? You know, the myth of adulthood with this, you know, a lot of us are just pretending a lot of the times and making stuff up as we go along. And maybe this whole, and that's why I say the return, you don't have to return to the child mind. It's always there, but it's just been covered up by the baggage of, I know this, oh, I've got this more set of keys, I know this, I'm the manager, I'm the executive assistant to the executive officer of the Croydon branch. Yeah. I'm the executive to the originator, or to the obfuscator, or to the navigator, of the transputator, feeling of the modulating of the circumference of the. Yeah, we get caught up in all of these terms and names, and most of them are complete nonsense. Yeah.
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 The language that we use, that I hear, when I hear people talking like on the train into work, or or even I'm a part of this my I won't talk about. Yeah, I guess I can. I'm a part of this in my community. There's a Facebook page for like the parents and everything. And some of the discussions that are being had, and all of the things that are important, this meeting, this school, blah blah blah, all these things, and like, for me, it all just always just sounds like noise. When I hear two people talking about these numbers and this business thing, for me, it just sounds like, I mean, they're standing there, they're looking, they're serious, and yeah, blah blah blah, and I'm like, and and part of me would buy the game. Part of me was like, oh wow, they're doing something very important, and I'm not doing anything, and I'm not talking about numbers and accounts and things like that. They must be really high up there. But then really, when I'm aware, I have some awareness, then I'm like, it's just blah blah blah. These are just two people that are just saying blah 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 blah, and they're putting value in these words, and they're important, but it's really just noise. I mean, it's nothing other than noise. And I do see them as like kids, again, kids playing a role that they took very serious. Nothing wrong with it, they took the role serious. But for me to make it into something more than it is a tragedy of sorts, because really what it is they will make the noise, and then after that they're not making the noise, and they're left with themselves to be with themselves, and who knows what that person is feeling, what insecurities, things that are coming up. And then the very important job or business account, that's going to be over at some point. And then the very bodies that they're in, that's going to deteriorate at some point, and it's going to go away. So all of these things are really not so important. They're not such a big deal.
Yeah, we spent decades, years going over and over and over this stuff with the same repetitive thoughts, putting some people up, putting some people down. And it's sometimes constant now. Maybe sometimes, if we were to what would happen if we heard a recording of our own thoughts over the last 30, 40 years? I wonder how long it will be before we fell asleep in utter boredom of just hearing what we got to do. And yeah, I think what did Clark Kent do? Clark Kent took off his suit and jacket and tie, and underneath he's from Krypton. He's got his Superman. Maybe we got to just run out there and yay, and do that, and take off this baggage of stuff. Look how we're doing it. So we're clearing the way for the generation to come.
Yeah.
We're clearing the way for the generation to come. And it's not a kind of, oh, me, that's what I'm doing, this wonderful, I'm sure. No, I think it's an unspoken thing that I think all life does. And we're the only ones to question it. An acorn tree grows up and it grows acorns, and these acorns, some of them will go into the ground and they'll become trees themselves. The oak doesn't go, oh, what a wonderful thing I'm doing, I'm preparing for the future. Yeah. It's just the cycle of life, isn't it? Yes. So what did Eckhart Tolle say? life has no opposite. It is birth and death which appear in life. So these things that we are doing and these ways of being, this healing, this awareness, this acting from not the triggers, but acting from openness, is not some, I'm doing it, so fantastic. That's the natural state of being on this planet.
Yeah.
And I say this because when I look around and I look at the window right now and I see these trees and that squirrel and that bird, it seems to be what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
I don't hear the trees talking outside. Oh, you know, that tree, Mr. Oak, make sure you plant that tree, that acorn there for the future because you want to. They're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've not heard it. Or maybe I'm not taking enough of certain things to hear it. Yeah. But maybe. So it seems to be the natural state.
Mm.
So then what this program, this session, this conversation has been about is we don't have to do anything that we're not. We just have to be how we actually are.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like it occurred to me the other day, just relaxing with all of it, you know, all of it, when you're aware of yourself, just this sense of self, and even noticing the ego part that is like, you know, the judging mind and, you know, this sort of thing, and the noticing the body and just being aware of that and just relaxing with it, just saying, okay, you know, there's a point of just feeling. When you give it, there's a point in just feeling in love with yourself as you are without having to take away anything and without having to add anything. Just as you are in this moment, which includes everything and which doesn't exclude anything, then, you know, there is this natural just what it does is it just loosens the constant resistance, the constant straining and striving of becoming or getting rid of or not being this or not being that or being this or being good enough or all of these different things, and just, you know, being as you are, as Ramana Maharshi would say, be as you are, you know, in this moment. And there's something that is just so delightful, you know, when that happens, or when you touch into that. Yeah.
See, I think what you just said there is at the same time honesty, but at the same time absolutely crazy. Because you said to be in touch with our body. I think if we said this phrase in the Amazon forest to indigenous peoples there 700 years ago, the thought of not being in touch with their bodies would what is he? You know, everybody, look, this guy is not in touch with his body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. The very fact that we are saying this is both extraordinary and just absolutely mind-bogglingly crazy.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the transformation for us, because we started from the beginning again, is just the basics of life. And that is why I think just the basics is radical. What you just said there, some people go, oh, he's airy fairies with the clouds. He's talking about love and compassion and community. What's he talking about? Yeah. But that's the natural way of being. And the fact that we have to talk about these things on this level shows how radical you are. And I think it's to take it out there and not just do it talk about what we've gone through, open about it, not just in the yoga retreat, the meditation hall, but it's to take it out, not to take it out, just to realize it in every moment. Yeah. And to realize it. And it's not a big thing. You don't need to put on the beads around your neck and to do it. You can be wearing a shirt and tie if you want to. It's not my thing, but if you want to wear a tie, go ahead. It's up to you. But you know what? Just doing that and the radicalness. Here's something I'm going to send out to everybody who's watching, wherever you are. If you got a poem, if you're a poet, write a poem about it. A songwriter, write about what you're seeing, what you're going through. If you're making films or movies or plays, create one about what's going on. If you have a book, let's talk about this. If you're with your friends, open yourself up to different conversations. Let's look at things from maybe a different perspective from what we've seen. Ran Usha in London, mind framed to see things a certain way because that's all I saw growing up. What I saw growing up was when you saw people, you didn't start talking to them. That's insane. But maybe to open, I see from a different perspective. And just because I believe it, and just because I think it, it doesn't mean that it's so. And let's open this way up and see where we're going to go next. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's a good place to end. What do you think? It's we're almost we're about 1:45 in.
Oh, yeah. As a master by the name of Simarati once say, there is no ending. I think it's just the beginning, I think he said.
Yeah. And before we leave, I'm going to tell a little joke.
Okay.
So this is, you told your why did the chicken cross the road? I have a why did the chicken cross the road? Okay. So why did the chicken cross the road?
Why did the chicken cross the road? Okay,
so the chicken in question was a scientist who was she, I should say, was a researching chicken. And she was living in Palm Springs, California, in the desert, very, very hot. It was like 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is in Celsius, but very, very hot, like sizzling hot. So the scientist chicken, she happened to be pregnant. She was at the end of the pregnancy and was about to lay an egg. I don't know if it would be considered a hen or a chicken. I think, no, chicken. Yeah. So whatever it is. So she was about to lay the egg at any moment. And again, sizzling hot. You could cook something on the ground. It was so hot. So across the road, she was delirious. She was dehydrated. She was gonna lay this egg, and she looks across the road, and she can barely see, but she sees a black circular object with a bar on it, and it's on the other side of the road on the ground. It's on the ground. I guess what you can call a sidewalk, maybe, but it was in the middle of the desert, so it wasn't really a sidewalk. It was just on the ground over there. So she could barely make it, and there were cars going by, but finally it was her time. There was a spot where no cars drove by. And again, this is the scientist chicken, and she did have her little notepad, and so she crossed the road as chickens do. You know, she got to the other side, and she got to the circular object. She was ecstatic. Like, she thought it was a mirage because, you know, it was so hot, and she thought she was seeing things, dehydrated. And she tapped on it, and it ding, 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 ding. And, you know, it was no mirage. And so she was so excited. This was her last amount of energy she has. She wrote on the notepad, she wrote some notes, she wrote down the temperature, which was very important. Okay. And she she hopped on the little circular object, and you know what it was? It was a frying pan. It was a frying pan. And so she hopped on the little frying pan, and when she hopped on it, she gave birth, and an egg came out, and she wrote on the little 7 something in the morning, egg comes out, and she wrote the temperature, and she took her little beak, and she tapped on the egg really hard. It was very important to do this quickly before time runs out. And she made a little crack, and it wouldn't open, so she like jumped up. She couldn't really fly, but she fell onto the egg, and the shell splattered. And then she jumped out of the frying pan, and she took her notepad, and she watched as the egg just sizzled, and then it cooked, and there was a fried egg on the frying pan. And she said, "Aha!" And he wrote down the note, and then that was it. so, so, so she wrote, this was the temperature that she could fry an egg. That was part of her she's been working on this thesis, and it was the last part of the thesis was frying the egg, and so she fried the egg, and she completed her work. And after she completed it, she was so overjoyed. She wanted to get back to bring her reportings to the professor, and she wrote it down, and then she turned around to rush back across the road, and she was run over by a tourist bus. It happened to be a tourist bus that was in Palm Springs, and the bus stopped, and tourists came out, and the guy with the microphone in the tourist bus said, "Everyone, look over there at the splattered chicken. That's actually a research chicken, and sometimes they come out here to work on thesis projects, and we see many of them because they get so excited and they got splattered, and people they took pictures, and that is why the chicken crossed the road." Okay, so I guess this is another failed one. All right, I'll work on some other ones for next time.
Oh, you finished, Ade? You finished?
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. Ade, like I said to you, Ade, your talent for producing jokes which can cause the recipient to go absolutely numb is actually really, I've never known anybody like it.